The charge leveled by your opponent is that your plan for broad tax cuts will deepen the state deficit and that you are not talking straight about that. How will you pay for those tax cuts? And is it reasonable to conclude that some increased taxes or fees aren't going to be necessary?
Well, I can tell you I'm not going to raise taxes, period. And that's something I said 8 years ago. It's a commitment I've made every year I've been in office. And I would argue, looking ahead, just look at what I presented. In my latest budget, I felt these were tough economic times. Saw too many foreclosures, too many for sale signs across this community, and so it wasn't enough to just hold the line on the tax levy. I actually proposed a budget that cut it. Now, some of the things I did, per your question earlier, we have changes in terms of wages and benefits and other reforms with our employee and retiree base, but we kept our core services, we protect seniors, we protect people with disabilities, we protect our parks and our transit system and others out there, but we had to cut taxes. So when people say, how can you balance a budget and still propose cutting taxes, I've done it. I've done it in this latest budget. Now, today it was interesting that, the story from some of the county board was, anticipating your question, was it in balance or not? Well, it is. The interesting part about that is the bottom line is that we have wage and benefit reforms included. We don't have any furloughs built into the base of our budget. No furloughs, no layoffs. But if the employees, some of our employees have already agreed to wage and benefit reforms, even in some of our unions. But for those that haven't, if they don't, by the time our budget goes into place, we have a fallback mechanism that kicks in automatically. It says that for furloughs up to 26 days and layoffs will kick in those particular areas. Because you can't have one group of employees making wage and benefit concessions that help balance the budget and not have that other group help apply that as well. So our budget is balanced, which all gets back to your question. If we can do that with the county budget, there's no doubt we can do it with the state. What I've laid out in terms of cuts are across the board, not just for a particular group, not just with combined reporting, not just with certain income tax brackets, but I'd like to have tax cuts across the board. And the ones I specifically mentioned are the tax cuts I'd like to do in that first session we called the special session. It'd be tax cuts for small businesses, 50 employees or less. And in the biennium we're still in, not the one that comes up starting July 1 of next year, we're anticipated to end with about a $45 million surplus by the end of that. Now, we have enough room, and we have some other changes we propose to cover the small business cuts we'd have, then to do what we'd propose in the next budget. I think if you look across the country at the states that have lowered their tax burden, that have lower tax burdens even in these past couple of years, that have made it more attractive, per your question, to do business in those states, those are the states that not only see more job growth, they've actually had healthy state budgets. Because the theory is if you get more people working because of a better business environment over a 2-year period, you're actually going to have more people paying into income taxes and sales taxes that'll help you in other areas as well.
It's an immediate effect.
I think it will. I think it will in the first year, let alone the second year. I was at Menards yesterday talking up in Eau Claire to 400 of their managers. I said, here's something the Menards can appreciate. I said, if you have a product and you sell 100 of them at this price, you're going to make a certain amount of profit. But if you lower the price down here and suddenly now you sell 1,000, your profit per product is less. But your profit overall is more because you expanded the number of people who buy your product. You've increased the sales tenfold, even though the price per product is less. If you get that many more people working, which I'm convinced you can do with these tax cuts, then those people pay income taxes, they pay sales taxes, they pay other things that help offset the so-called revenue you've lost from those other taxes. Now, you can't do that solely in a vacuum without also having restraints that you put in and controls you put in to balance the rest of the budget. But I think the two go hand in hand.
And are fees as sacred as taxes to you?
Well, across the board fees. I mean, to me, if you look at what the mayor did, for example, in the 2010 budget, he raised taxes and fees by $21 million. Property taxes went up under Tom Barrett's budget for this year about 4.4%. But on top of that, anybody who's lived in the city of Milwaukee knows, if you're paying more for garbage, if you're paying more for water, which we all got socked with water, if you're paying more because you have a light in front of your house, if you pay more for curbs and for plowing and all that, not only are you paying more, to me, a fee is a tax if you don't have a choice in paying it. If I have a choice, if I say, well, I don't have to golf at that golf course, that's your choice. I don't want to have a boat at the marina, that's your choice. But you don't get to say, I don't want you to collect my garbage, somebody else should do it. And that's a garbage tax. That's what it ultimately is. And I would argue it's actually even worse because you can't deduct on your federal income taxes your garbage fee or your water fee or other things. You can only do it on your property tax bill. So it's making it worse to politically try and get around the fact that they're raising your taxes. But at the state level, and to help with local governments, though, I think we should do more, not just for the state to balance their budget, but to do more to empower counties, cities, towns, school districts, and others to manage the tax dollars they do have.